You can turn your life around for the better in a very short span of time. I wrote a little reflection about this, which I was hoping to share with you, and I hope you find it insightful. Um, there's a self improvement YouTuber I like very much. His name is Hamza. I'm sure if you've landed on this video, you have most definitely heard of Hamza because he's a massive YouTuber in the self improvement space, if not the biggest, I'd say. But he's someone who actually inspired me to kind of look, introspect, reflect on my life, and see what areas can improve. And I feel like this is something that's applicable to anyone, literally, because there's always space to improve some facet of your life. Um, Hamza talked about how in the span, I remember I was watching a video, and he often raises this. He talked about how in the span of a very few short years, he turned his life around for the better. And became a much higher version of himself in all facets of life. Um, if I remember, he talked about how at the start of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, that's when he started to change his life. And prior to that, he said that he was depressed, watching porn, weed addicted, fapping, um, who relied on government welfare in the UK because he was just so financially poor. Hamza also ironically said that I remember, which was quite interesting. He said that ironically enough, he talked about a time where he helped a homeless man in his job, and the homeless man had more money in his account than Hamza himself. And in a few short years, Hamza changed his life for the better. Um, and he did this by himself. He did this all by himself, and he worked towards this life. So I think anyone who works towards improving themselves can can always make changes for the better, because a lot of people have said the more you work on yourself, ultimately things will fall into place. Um, and now, of course, Hamza is very financially wealthy. He supported his parents so much, and he inspires millions of young men like myself to become higher versions of themselves. He also talks about how he's more established financially, having responsibly enough sourced multiple areas of income and optimized that. And he's a far superior person, and this is all evidenced in the fact that he's got a very successful online school. And he's got a cult of young men who really follow his teachings and benefit tremendously from it. So this is one example of how I realized you can change your life in a very short span of time, and this is very inspiring. And I think that's what makes Hamza's message so compelling. The fact that other people see where he's from, where he came from, where he started, and how in such a short span of time, when he consciously worked on himself, it ultimately propelled him into a far superior person. Um, Another example I'd like to talk about, where I reflected on how drastically someone can change their lives for the better, is in a book I recently read by Robert Kiyosaki. He's also the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And this book, I believe, was Businesses of the 21st Century. And in this book, something really stuck to me about what I read. He was talking about how him and his wife at one point were homeless, and they were broke and just flat out in debt. However, in a few short years, um, his life and his wife's life completely changed around, and they became multimillionaires. And he was talking about how his friends were telling him to, just get a job. You can easily get a job, but he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with my gut feeling. I'm going to see this dream of being financially independent come through. And in a short few years of focusing on his dream and honing on in on his skills, he was able to um, just skyrocket his income and do far better than anyone expected. Um, so these two stories, one from Hamza and one from Robert Kiyosaki, kind of shifted my mind, and it kind of taught me that you don't necessarily have to wait for that life that you want. That life is waiting for you out there, and it's just up to you to quickly propel your goals so that you can get to that life that's waiting for you, and you're gonna get it as long as as long as you keep at it and stay determined. um, so obviously things don't take forever. um, when you put the effort, put the goals, and set the pace, that's when your life definitely changes for the better. And I've noticed this firsthand. I'm very different to how I was a year ago. Very different, obviously, to where I want to be. But I notice how when you're focused on yourself and your goals, in a short span of time, you can make a tremendous improvement. Um, I hope this was insightful, and I hope you were able to benefit from anything that I shared. Um, Thank you.